Welcome to the Outliers podcast, celebrating the people, the skills, and the tools that create stories worth reading. A presentation of Outliers Writing University, where tomorrow's authors learn the craft.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and podcast series in our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle. Kathy Antrim is not here today. I don't know what she's doing, but I'm sure it's something fun. But that's okay. We're going to have fun anyway because I have my dear friend Caitlin Rother here with us. Now, Caitlin has degrees in psychology, and she has degrees in literature and all of this, and she's gone to UC Berkeley and Northwestern and other institutions, and she writes both fiction and nonfiction, which is near and dear to my heart. So, Caitlin, welcome to the program.
Caitlin, by the way.
Caitlin, yes. Welcome to the program.
I'm happy to be back. Thanks.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Well, you wear those two hats, where you write true crime, nonfiction stuff, and you write fiction stuff. Which one do you enjoy the most? That's like saying which one's your favorite child. I understand.
I don't know which editor am I going to alienate.
Yeah.
So basically, let's put it this way. My dream, my original goal was to be a crime novelist. And so I started out actually writing fiction, trying to write fiction. And I did write fiction, and I had a very difficult time getting published. So basically, it was really more of a matter of practicality versus what I really wanted to do. The bottom line was I was already writing, journalism and getting published every day. So I thought to myself, why am I banging my head against the wall here, trying so hard to get this novel published? Why don't I try writing a nonfiction book, since that's what I do for a living is journalism. So yeah, right off the bat there, I got to publish my first true crime book, which is called Poison Love. And it's to date my best-selling book. So I don't think I would be where I am today without that. But I write all my true crime books like novels. So I use fiction storytelling techniques. So they're narrative nonfiction, and write scenes, characters, sort of very similar techniques. So it really isn't that much different. And I've actually had some author friends read my latest fiction, my two thrillers, which you can't see because I have the blur on. Sorry, just realized. And she said, it's actually a lot like your true crime. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, so I went and spent 12 next books, writing narrative nonfiction. And that was before then I was able to get these two thrillers hooked and staged, which are part of a series published. So now I actually know what I'm doing. So it's now that I can do both. Which one do I like better? I kind of am really enjoying writing the fiction because I think the true crime really can take a toll after writing a dozen of them. So I'm not saying I'm done writing true crime, but I really do. I really am enjoying the fiction, and I'm just finishing up yet another one too. So I've actually got 3 unpublished novels that I was just talking with my new editor yesterday, and she's interested in 2 of them. So hopefully we'll have some more coming up here.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, nonfiction requires more meticulous attention to details. It obviously requires more research, but you also you are also within the guardrails because the facts have to take you there. Whereas with fiction, you just throw stuff up in the air and say, let's have a party, and that's fun. So do you approach writing them differently? I mean, when you're going to approach a nonfiction project, say you're going to write a true crime story, do you approach that differently than if you're starting a fiction story?
Well, okay, so let's take the one that I just wrote. It took me about 7 months probably. I came up with I had a question. Basically, I was sitting in Coronado having dinner, and I came up with what would happen if this, And I've heard other novelists say that that's kind of how they get their ideas, which is
Absolutely.
very much different from a true crime story, which is, hey, there's a case coming up. Has it had enough? Has it been oversaturated in the media? Do I care about this
Right.
person? Are the people involved in the story sympathetic? Are readers going to care about these people? Am I going to care about these people? So, I mean, I have very different ways of approaching them. There's
Yeah.
a case that's going to be going to trial, and I'm probably going to go to opening statements and sort of feel it out and see how it goes. Because these days, it takes a lot to interest me because I've written so many books and I don't want to do something similar to what I've already done. So
Right.
it's gotten harder and harder actually to find a true crime book that is challenging enough and interesting enough that it's going to keep my attention, let alone the reader.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everybody knows the answer to this, but in your research and your true crime stories and all that kind of stuff, little things they fall out and become fictional stories. You run across things and say, "Oh yeah, okay, let me think about that."
Sometimes years later. So yeah, so the
Yeah.
one that I'm actually I'm sending it out to beta readers right now and collecting feedback was inspired. One of the, I don't know if you want to call him a bad guy, but one of the main characters, is inspired by Charles Manson. I wrote a book about Charles Manson. I got to learn a lot about cults through writing
Yep.
and researching that book. I also covered Heaven's Gate when I was with the newspaper, and
Oh
I
yeah.
went to the intellectual property trial that they had. Um,
Yeah, that was
and
down in
so,
San Diego. So
uh-huh.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and
It's in
so
the
I mean I've
backyard.
kind
Yeah.
of gathered a lot of information. And so I tend to use information that I've gathered, topics that interest me, and they all sort of, other themes, like addiction or what's going on in the news and what's going on in popular culture and what are some themes and some tropes that I can pull from that I think that are interesting to me that I think will be interesting to other people. And I don't want to do something that's overdone, and you
Right.
also you can't really do what's a trend because by the time you publish it, it'll be
Oh yeah,
over,
yeah.
So I try to just see what's interesting to me and what I see in the news that I think is going to maybe have some legs to it.
And I think that's good advice for all writers. If write what you want to write, write what you're interested in. Do not
Hmm.
follow trends or anything because trends are flaky and they'll be gone in a minute. But and if you're writing something you don't like, it is a lot of work. So
Way too much work.
you
It
you
gets
gotta
to be a
like it.
slog,
It
right? It's just
does.
like, oh, why
If you
did I
don't want
do
to do it,
this?
don't do it. Exactly. Well, let's say you come up with this idea and you have this idea for just in general, you have an idea for a fictional story and you're gonna novelize it. Where do you go from there? Are you an outliner? Do you just sit down and start writing? How do you approach this project, this new what if?
Well, one of the things that I learned from my first novel, which took me 17 years to get published, is don't keep writing the first chapter
Yes.
till you get it right. Don't keep writing the first 100 pages until you get it right, because chances are, and this happened to me, I ended up adding a brand new first chapter because
Of
I didn't
course.
start it in the right place, which I didn't realize at the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing. And this book that I'm working on right now, same thing. I wrote a first chapter and I kept going. And I've learned now, do not edit yourself. Keep going. Do not, be the writer. You can go back and be the editor later. But I still realized, you know what? I need a new first chapter. This one isn't the right place to start. So I added a first chapter, which added a whole new
Yep.
wrinkle. And that's where it all started. Those were the seminal moments. I was thinking about putting those later. No, they need to be first in a prologue. And some people say, oh, I don't read the prologue. I'm like, why not?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
That's just silly. You're
a
missing
good
something
prologue is
really
great.
important.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that's what I always tell writers. Finish the first draft. It doesn't have to be good, but tell
Right.
the story. If you spend so much time editing the first 100 pages, you don't know these people yet. So when you by the time you get to the book and you've lived with them through the entire story, now you go back and you read the first chapter and say, "Well, she wouldn't say that. He wouldn't do that.
Right.
That doesn't even make sense anymore." Exactly. So tell the story. You'll go back and fix it later.
Right. But I do outline. And that's the other
Okay.
thing I learned. The first book, the first
I think you froze.
an outline of your book, right? And what this each scene is going to be and what advances the story, what is the reader going to learn, blah, blah, blah. So I do that for my fiction. And so I'll start with a kind of a vague outline.
Right.
And then I'm still thinking through things. And the thing is, you can do an outline, but what I have found is until I actually start writing it, things that I thought were going to work don't end up
Right.
working on the page, or the logic doesn't flow right, or there's a bunch of stuff that has to happen before I can get to this thing. So I will then probably continue to expand on my outline, but keep it as an organic, more of a set of guidelines,
Right.
because chances are there's going to be changes and I'll come up with a better idea as I'm writing
Sure.
it than what I originally thought of. But I always think I have to know where I'm going. And I think if you don't know how the book is going to end, at least vaguely, you don't know where to start, and you don't know what the middle is going to be. You don't know what your story arc is. So I feel like, and this came from John Irving. I heard him interviewed.
Hmm.
And so he's pretty good. I admire him and respect him a lot. I think that's really good advice. So you have to know the ending of your book when before you can really get into it.
Well, I think that the line between the pantser or plotter is very blurry, very broad, very fuzzy. And if you looked at a Venn diagram, the overlap is 90% because I think those of us who are pantsers, I kind of am knowing where things are going as I'm writing. I may not know the end when I start, but I do know the next 4 or 5 scenes because of what just happened, what had to be, what has to happen. So you're kind of outlining, even if it's in your head. And outliners, once they get their outline done, like you talk about, they go all pants, and they start fleshing it out, and suddenly it
But I
becomes
do have to
exactly.
but I have to outline it at least. And the
Yeah.
other thing that I do is I draw the characters first, sometimes before I even do the plot,
Oh,
or
okay.
maybe a little bit of both. So, I kind of worked backwards with this new one that I'm working on. I started with that premise, what would happen if this?
Right.
And then I thought, okay, and then I realized that what I had done for myself is set up a very challenging time problem, because I realized that it was going to take me some number of years to get to that point. And it's also
Hmm.
2/3 in the book. So and I can't give it away, right? I have to
Right.
build up to that, and I don't want to give anything away earlier than that. And it has to do with babies being born. So, babies have a finite set time that they need to grow.
Exactly.
And if you want to have a bunch of babies in your story or children, it's going to take a number of years for them to get to be old enough for you to use them in the plot that you had in mind. So
Right.
I've set up myself with a challenging set of circumstances. I had to work backwards, came up with the characters, then realized, oh, I got to play with the timeline. So I did, 14 years later, 3 years later, 2 years later, 6 months later in the first chapters, till I got to where I wanted to get, where I could be in real time. So sometimes, you think it's going to be simple, but I absolutely had to outline that one and use a timeline to
Yeah.
make sure that I was getting things right.
Yeah. Timelines can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, well, that one was. I'm
Yeah,
still using it to check and make sure that my math was right.
exactly. Well, let's talk about this.
Okay,
I love the cover. Very
thank you. I love it
visual,
too.
very it grabs you. It's also intriguing because it looks a little spooky, almost like a haunted house, but in a very high dollar neighborhood, of course. So what's
It's actually a real place. So it's an
okay.
illustration, but I said, hey, my surfing homicide detective, Ken Good, his home away from home is a beach in La Jolla called Windansea, and that's where this
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
So if you look right above the D, there's a little shack with little
Yep.
bamboo roof. That is a real shack. It's an iconic landmark. It's been there
Hmm.
since 1942, and
Wow.
it's been knocked down by waves many, many times and always rebuilt by the local surfers, because it's like they have to have that.
I love it.
It's like a
What
touchstone for
Well,
them.
tell us about this story. How did this come about? And give us a little tease.
Okay. So, Hooked, which is the first in the series, starts out with Katrina Chopin and the investigative reporter. And Ken Good, my surfing homicide detective, and they are investigating these two suspicious deaths. So we spend the first book trying to solve that. They get to the end of the book, they kind of feel like they solved it, but then they realize, no, actually, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So Staged picks up exactly where Hooked left off, and they continue the investigation, and it gets deeper and deeper, and more secrets are revealed, and more corruption, and more bad wealthy people misbehaving.
Well, it is La Jolla, so there is
It is.
that.
So
Yeah.
it's basically, this beautiful place with this
Right.
corrupt
Florida.
underbelly,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a third book in the series, which I was pitching once again to my editor yesterday. And she's going to decide rather soon, hopefully we're going to have that one come out. And then I've also written a book 4. So there's a story arc that goes all the way along, continuing with this wealthy group of rich white men who are exerting their power and influence behind the scenes in city government, county government, and doing bad things to people to get what they want.
Yep. Well, I think there's another lesson there. Writers write, so keep writing. You've got your third one that you're trying to shop, and you're working on the fourth one, and that's the way you do it. Don't ever stop. Just
I've
keep
actually
moving.
got 3 and 4 done, and I am now
Yeah.
writing another one. So I'm a little bit
Yeah.
crazy. I've got 3
Yeah.
books.
You're such a
that
slacker,
are not under contract. But if I don't have, I told my editor yesterday, I said, you know what? I'm not the kind of person that can sit around. I need a book to work on to make
Yeah.
myself happy.
Absolutely.
So please let me know when you read this next one if you want it to be a series or a standalone, because I might just keep going. Not might, I will.
So where can people learn about you and learn about your books and buy your books and all of that stuff?
Well, I have a website, CaitlinRother.com. There's lots of stuff on there. I'm got a Substack, which I keep meaning to write more. I've got one waiting right here that I'm going to post about my never-ending book tour and what it's like to have 4 books come out within 15 months.
Whoa.
Which I've never had. I mean, I'm not complaining, but it's just been very challenging to try to keep, without oversaturating and annoying people, with self-promotion. It's tricky, and to get people to come to events. But and I'm on all kinds of social media as well.
Sure. Yeah, good. Well, everybody take a look, find Staged and of course Hooked. Go back and read the first one and get ready for the next ones, and visit Caitlin's website and learn all about her fascinating career and work, and you'll be amazed how many books and the breadth of what they are. Caitlin, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you for having me back. I really
Let's
enjoyed
do it all again down the road.
Okay, sounds good. All
So
right.
until then, that wraps up this episode of Get to Know here on the Outliers YouTube channel and podcast series. And as you know, we'll be back with other interviews and other fun stuff. So until then, keep reading, keep writing, keep having fun, and try not to get caught.
The Outliers Podcast is a copyrighted presentation of Outliers Writing University. All rights reserved. Learn more at outlierswritinguniversity.com.